Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Zoe Hawkins, and my friend and co-host Jo Wheatley.
Hi, everybody. Today we are talking to you about the most common topics that our clients bring to us for coaching. We often get asked by people that haven't had coaching before or don't know much about coaching, what can you bring? Or from experienced coaches, what do you coach around? So we thought we'd give you a little insight into that in our conversation today.
Yeah, and whilst I would say I don't have a really deeply refined niche, I would say, my coaching is typically with leaders and CEOs and rising CEOs. So it's in that corporate coaching ballpark. And I've never really drilled down into niching because I haven't really needed to, I suppose, is the position. So the bulk of our business is obviously coaching training, and we have a small portfolio of clients that tend to come through referrals and recommendations of people that we've worked with before. So I think that's a good scene setter, because you might be listening to this thinking, well, my clients don't bring any of that stuff. And that might be because you work in a different field, and you have a different message, and that's okay. So if you went to my website, you'd see I talk about leadership development and working with impact and influence. And I would say that is a hanger that I tend to get the topics coming in through. So if I reflect on clients that I've been working with this past year, I think the first thing would be around career direction. And career direction, I mean looking to the next role and how to get ready for the next role. So I might be working with a senior leader who's looking towards becoming a CEO or a COO, and they want to understand what their gaps are. And they may have some awareness of what their gaps are, but clarifying what their gaps are, and then doing the work to be able to close those gaps in coaching to be able to be ready for that CEO position. So that would be the goal. And we were chatting behind the scenes that the work you do might be very different to that, but that's the starting point. How about you, Jo? What's one of yours?
Well, I work with CEOs largely and those on a CEO pathway, but I also work with other people that approach me if we feel that there is a fit for us working together. And a lot of my work is around supporting them both with strategy, decision, direction, um, leading teams and navigating the complexities of the dynamics of that. Which also plays into the question they often have around who am I? Like, who am I now? So I'm kind of stepping over a number of the key topics that we're going to kind of talk through with you today. So often I get approached for coaching when people are new into role, for example. So it's almost like they would have had coaching with you, let's say. And then an organization might approach me and say, we've got somebody that's newly appointed and we really want to help them to thrive in role. And there are these challenges, or we recognize that there are some gaps. So, we've chosen them, but rarely is somebody the finished package, particularly in the start of the role, and depending on what's happening in the industry and the challenges around that for them. So it's an exciting time. So it's often these what are the critical points? I think people come to coaching often at critical points. It's not. Some people might call that like a burning platform. Now, some people come because themselves privately, and some people, are funding it themselves. Sorry, it's for some people the organization is funding it. So that onboarding phase, supporting them to thrive in that first 6 to 12 months period, which is critical for both the organization, the individual, and the teams that those people are supporting.
I think that critical points is a good point, because I think another thing that is common in people that come to coaching will be about change. Now, that might be that the organization is going through a restructure, and so working with leaders who are navigating that restructure both themselves, but also leading others through that period of change. And that would be the sort of corporate side. But then there's like personal change. So I also have clients that approach me who are self-funding, who are going through personal change. It might be that they have recently moved out of a relationship, or they've recently taken a role in a new country, or something significant may have happened in their life that they need some time and space to process whilst they maintain the role that they're doing. So I think change is another umbrella term because it's so vast, but those critical points where change happens, and it needs navigating on a personal and professional front, is another topic that people bring to coaching very frequently.
Yeah, and I find a lot of people come to coaching because they want support with decision making. So they know that they know change is coming. And sometimes they sense themselves that they want to make a change. There's that sort of developing energy within them, um, and they're not sure what decision to make. And that self-trust isn't quite there. And so they come to be able to talk it through and kind of figure it out for themselves. But whilst doing that, build the relationship they have with themselves, that self-trust. And obviously we look at what's the core of that, where does that stem from, so that they can make decisions confidently in the future without needing to have that sort of ongoing support. And that's it's just such meaningful and worthwhile work, because people really want to make the right decision for themselves. And in order to work out what the right decision is for themselves, they need to understand themselves, what they want for the future, where they are now, what resources they might need in order to be able to make a success of the decision that they make, and also accept responsibility for the decision that they make, whatever the outcome of that is.
And I think you touch on a point there. And when we talk about these topics that clients typically bring to coaching, it doesn't take long to bring that into another space. So, for example, if I'm working with a leader and the engagement that have brought us to coaching is that they want to be the best leader that they can be. They want to be able to lead their team through change. They want to be able to position themselves well within the organization in order to secure a promotion in 6 to 12 months' time. That's very typical. Somebody arrives with that. That's what we talk about. But there's a difference between that's the goal, but actually what's the work that you do in coaching? What's the gap? And you alluded there to self-trust. And I think these deeper kind of issues, deeper connections that people have, where people come with that because it's safer, it's easier to tell that story. It's, telling the story of like, I want to be a great leader is much less vulnerable than telling the story of, I feel like an imposter, or I lack confidence, or I'm just not sure who I am anymore, or whether I'm even in the right role. Those deeper seated challenges are what becomes part of being able to achieve the goal of being an inspirational leader, or a more influential spokesperson. It really is about what's going on in somebody's heart, what's going on in somebody's world that brings them to coaching.
Yeah, I mean, identity is a key topic that comes up again and again and again. The heart of who am I? Who am I now? Who was I? Who do I want to be? Are they the same thing? Are they different? Is it okay that I feel like this? I've had these things happen. Do I need to be somebody different in this role now? What's the authentic me? I keep being told I need to be an authentic leader, and yet I feel like that means I need to be what the organization needs, thinks of as an authentic leader, or they want me to be authentic, and I'm just not sure what does that even mean for me, and how will I know that, and does it matter? But getting to the crux of identity and ego and all of the things that interplay, and the impact of that on what the individual wants to achieve is really fundamental work. And that word identity feels like a big word. It's almost like the word strategy. People are like, well, is it the same as a plan, or an identity? What does that really mean? So they may not, clients don't use that word in the reason that they come to coaching, but it is an area that's often explored. What's their signature in the role? If people were going to be describing them, what are the words that they would use to describe them, and do they align with does the individual self-image align with the way they're perceived by others, for example? And sometimes there's a misalignment there, and so we can look at how's that come about, what do you want to do about it, and spend time in that area.
I think also what clients bring to coaching, there's obviously what we would call a journey goal. So in the initial engagement, you have a journey goal, which is, you know, some of the things we've described today. I want to be ready for a CEO role. And then if you work with somebody over a 6, 8, 10 month period, you know, you're together for a significant chunk of that person's year. And as we know, a lot can happen in a year. And so actually what clients will often bring to coaching are the seismic shifts that are happening around them and in their lives that are influencing their ability to achieve that goal. And that could be births, deaths, uh, marriages, separations. It's the things that could interrupt the ability to be successful with the thing that they want to achieve, as much as it is, what do I need to do to be able to achieve that if nothing was to have happened? So a lot of the work that I do with clients, that I know we do with clients, will be around their emotions. Like, how do you feel about that? What do you want to feel? How can you process what's happening? What do you need? What support do you need? What do you want? Who are you now that this has happened? You know, it's much more what I would describe as like soul level work than it is transactional. Great, you want to be a CEO, off you go. It's much more working with the person at their core of who they are and what they want, given what might be happening around them at the time. Even like, it's not necessarily just their life, but an organization can shift rapidly in a year. So the organization may be busy shifting whilst the individual is busy shifting. And how do you bring those two things together so that alignment can exist?
I find that in coaching, topics that come up are also around conflict and conflict resolution. And that can be because there's difficulties or tensions in relationships at work. So they're less than ideal, but they're critical relationships. You know, those relationships aren't going to go away. So they want to do something about it. Equally, I think what I also find with clients is it's the internal conflict. So I want this, but I also want this, or I don't want that and I don't want that. Or, I want this outside of work, but I want this in work. And I can't, that's creating tension and I don't know what to do with that. And that is life, that we all experience that. All of these things we're talking about are things that we all experience. And I think it's really important. Like, these are normal things that we all encounter. And when somebody comes to coaching, it's because they can see the value in being in a space and dedicating time to really go a bit deeper into this area to see, how can I accelerate, like, getting to the other side of this? So whilst I could manage this myself in some way, I'll cope through it. They're actually looking to thrive and they're looking to learn and grow through the experience, and having, an objective person to facilitate almost them really kind of fully making contact with themselves can be really valuable, because life is fast and noisy and busy. And coaching is a quiet, calmer, purer space. And actually, when you have that time, all of a sudden things can become very, very clear. So yeah, conflict, critical relationships and the tensions there, whether that is with someone's business partner, with somebody in their team, with a loved one, they're typical things that come up in coaching.
And I think what you're talking about there is also people come to coaching for their well-being. So I don't personally work with clients who come because they're burnt out. I work with clients who come because they recognize the route that they are going down doesn't end happily. So they almost have that foresight to get ahead of it and recognize, if I keep going at this pace, I'm going to crash. And so because I'm leaning into sensing that, I'm going to do something about it. It's like proactive measure. And so when clients bring that, what you tend to be working on around, okay, how did you get here? Let's talk about that. So that will often be talking about things like boundaries, the sort of skills and strategies they have to be able to manage the time, the critical conversations they might need to have to reshape things. the habits, beliefs that they may have picked up that don't support them in maintaining a well-balanced and healthy life and lifestyle. It's far ranging, but ultimately the topic is clients will come and like, I don't want to work this way. I don't want life to be this way, and I don't want work to be this way. So it takes time to actually be like, so what do you want instead? And that in itself can actually be a transformational conversation. When somebody arrives with that place, you're like, actually, what do I want? Actually, I want to feel fulfilled in my work, and I want to have a life that is spacious and calm. Okay, great. Yeah, let's work with that. So so well-being, I would say, is one of the topics that people come with. I think what I would also say, none of these are like individual goals. Actually, one client could come with all of these things we've just spoken about. And it's not that you pick off every single goal, because if you've only got 6-10 sessions with a client, you won't necessarily be able to cover one. But as you said, these are all normal aspects of a person's day-to-day life. So when you pick up one thing, you often end up picking up many other things as you go too.
And you know what? I sort of also want to throw in there that a common thing that occurs is people, come to coaching or come to have a chemistry conversation. And when you ask them, what does success look like? What do you need or want to get from the coaching? They don't know, or at least they can't articulate it and put it into words. And I don't think people talk enough about the reality of that, because I think when people are often like in some sense of struggle or internal struggle, it's like a whole ball of threads, and it's kind of, I don't even know where to start to be able to do that, because they're conflicted with, well, I know that I've got a limited number of sessions or time in the coaching, and I don't know, out of all the stuff I could bring, what is it that we could achieve in that. And that's where we start. We always talk about like meeting our clients where our clients are at, and for me it's very much about just accepting the client as they come and as they arrive. And so part of our time together initially is about really working out what is it that you really need to work on or want to work on, starting point. And also those things change as their self-awareness increases, in the sessions, outside of the sessions. That then kind of alters where we go and the work we could do, because as they get confidence that they can then continue their own, their work in a particular area, that it may be that they want to work in coaching on another aspect, because it's usually more around the mindset than it is around the practicalities of things. We work with people, we see people as resourceful, creative, and whole. And that's the joy of coaching, is really all we're doing is helping people to see, a very simplistic level, we're just helping people to see how brilliant and amazing they already are.
And I think what you're talking about there is clarity. People come with a lack of clarity, and what the goal ends up being is, how do I get the clarity that I need in whatever aspect of life that it is? Yeah. And I think what you said there lastly around, we help people to see their brilliance. Absolutely. To see themselves in the light that we're able to see them in. And that permeates all parts of life. So coaching is very, it's very wide ranging. And I think the type of client that we work with, they are high achievers. And so that piece that you were saying around, it's rarely the practical. That's why our coaching tends to be so deep, because they don't need an action plan. They don't need to help and support in deciding when they're going to do something and, slotting that into the diary. Like that's like a given. The types of clients that we work with are like, they're good to go with the action. Actually, what our clients tend to struggle with is connecting with their emotions, having time and space. Some clients just come because they want thinking space. I just need some thinking space, and so you have the coach, you've got to decide, can I deliver that as a goal? Like, what does that look like together? So yeah, that's probably all I'd say around the types of things that people come to. Every client is different, every client journey is different, but they're all as fulfilling and exciting as the others.
Yeah, I mean, there's a proliferation of coaches, in different niches, which is, the niche is the coach communicating to the world. Uh, you can bring this topic to coaching with me, and I will coach you on this topic. So, but even with that, it's really a starting point. For it, as we've been discussing today, actually, when you start to work together and then you discover, the layers underneath that and the other topics around that to work on. So, if you're interested in training to be a coach and learning more about the topics that people bring to coaching and get practice in facilitating those conversations and the breadth of them, check out our website, igcompany.co.uk.